The UX industry, so user experience industry, talks about the value of empathy in our work. As researchers, we often find ourselves in dark, heavy topics with participants, but we're not equipped to deal with it like counselors are. How do we look after ourselves during those research projects?
It's so important that so I'm going to just make an assumption without obviously being in this industry. I feel like you're probably going to know the area that you'll be researching before you start researching it. Is that usually how it works?
It depends, like, your expertise and your skill set, but often we have to suddenly become experts in another industry or topic in like a few weeks.
Yeah.
So you do get deep really quickly.
Right. Okay. Well, that I guess answers that for me. Thank you for clarifying, because I guess if we're noticing that, I know that some design agencies, for instance, they work more with mental health or wellbeing kind of places, and so when you know that that's sort of the area that you're going to be working in, it's probably a bit easier to do some prep work and being able to have your own therapy and having a really good support network around you. They're the things that are really, really useful, because again, if we think about that Tetris kind of thing, if we're already starting up here and we've only got that little bit left of room to play with, it doesn't take very much for us to completely explode out of the top. So making sure that we're managing our own internal space a lot more effectively and sharpening the saw, if I go back to that analogy, that can be really, really useful. It also helps to widen our resilience window. So if we have a really narrow resilience window and the usual ups and downs that everybody goes through in their day, week, month, year of their life, if we have a narrow resilience window, then there's things that are going to be outside of our capacity to handle more. Whereas if we have a broader resilience window, then there's more space for us to handle the ups and downs better. So that comes from, mindfulness practice, exercise, sleep hygiene, therapy, being in healthy relationships, communication, connecting more, all those real sort of life and living skills. They're the things that really help us to manage our own internal space with that. If you're noticing, so if I just sort of reread that bit, so it says, as researchers, we often find ourselves in dark, heavy topics with participants, but we're not equipped to deal with it like counsellors are. How do we look after ourselves during research projects? So one of the most helpful things that you can do is actually to have a debrief person after each of your interviews or I'm not sure how this works in terms of the research part, but if you're having like an interview or a workshop with a group of people to understand more, then setting aside a good 30 to 45 minutes to really debrief with someone. So whether that's your HR person, who usually tends to have a few more sort of skills in managing mental health and well-being, it might be even that you call the EAP service and have a debrief at the end of a big day of this research stuff. Like these are what those services are there for. If you're noticing that you're taking things home with you, then this really needs to be communicated to your manager, because, again, from a systems perspective, there can be other ways of creating buffers between you and the details, because just like in group therapy, we encourage people to share, but we don't encourage specifics about a situation because it can be triggering to other people in the room. So in the same way, it's about knowing what level to ask about, and when things are going over that edge, learning strategies to kind of go, yep, okay, cool, we'll just park this here. We don't want to kind of go, here's all the stuff, and then not know how to kind of put yourself back together again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's I think that was the advice we were given in doing circles as well. Like, it's really easy because also you want to kind of be showing as like really listening and really kind of wanting to understand someone, but actually you've got to be quite careful around your own boundaries. And this is probably, Jazz, where like there is a little bit of responsibility here for the employer, because if you're going to put someone into these kinds of situations, you actually do have to make sure they've got the safety net around them, right?
Duty of care, 100%. I mean, it sounds a little bit like a no-brainer, right? I would feel really horrible to send people into projects where they would be exposed to information that affects them. So I think surely someone that works in that sort of space where it gets quite dark and heavy has to kind of like overcompensate by putting in additional care. I mean, maybe not, but I mean, it should, definitely. I mean, that's for me a must.